Welcome to the Light and Shadow podcast. I am Gray, and this is a space where we explore the places where consciousness meets mystery, not to arrive at easy answers, but to ask better questions. Today's conversation is about light, not metaphorical light, not poetic light, but a literal spark of light that appears in the moment of a human conception. And what that might mean for how we understand ourselves, God, and the relationship between science and spirituality. My guest is Kevin McCrudden, filmmaker, author, congressional honoree, and the creator of the globally award-winning documentary The Light of Man.
Hello, Greg.
Kevin has spent his career at the intersection of motivation, human potential, and what he calls the divine spark within humanity. His work challenges us to reconsider not just Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but the very nature of what makes us human. In 2016, scientists at Northwestern University discovered a measurable flash of light, a zinc spark that occurs at the moment of conception. Kevin has theorized this connection 8 years earlier, proposing that the same light reported in near-death experiences might also be present at life's beginning. What he's done is bridge science and spirituality in a way that invites both reverence and scrutiny. Before we start, I want to say this. Some of you listening may find this conversation affirming. Some of you may find it provocative or uncomfortable. Some of you may be skeptical about whether science and spirituality can or should be connected this way. All of those positions are welcome here. This conversation isn't about proving God exists. It is about exploring what happens when we try to name the sacred using the language of science. Kevin, welcome to the Light and Shadow.
Great introduction. Very well done. Very nice.
Thank you. Kevin, when you say you found the light of God in the light of men, what do you mean in precise terms?
So great, as you might imagine, it's complicated, and this is an area that you focus on a great deal. And so this isn't a novel idea. If you search the idea of light and enlightenment and the light of God, it precedes Jesus. It goes all the way back, probably 5,000 to 10,000 years, where spiritual leaders and religious leaders have been asking the question about this light that emanates from man. So it's not a new concept in that way. The thing that makes it a little bit different is that my son had a near-death experience in a car accident in 2007. And he said that he saw light, and he spoke with his grandfather, who we miss dearly. And it took me a while to think about it, but in 2008, I began writing The Light of Man. And so this idea of the light at the end of life that literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people talk about, they have a very similar experience. And so that really created the hypothesis. And what I say in the movie is that I'm an Irish Catholic. So I was brought up going to church and getting ashes. And on Ash Wednesday, they would say from dust to dust, or from ash to ash. So you come from ash, you return to. And I thought, no, what if it's from light we come and light we return? And so that's where this impetus started. And what I thought was, at the very beginning, at the very creation of life, that there had to be a spark of light. There had to be this light that entered our bodies at that moment. Because if you think about it, there's not really another time where it would make sense that light that illuminates, that gives light to an energy to the human species, to the human being. There's really no other time where that would happen. And so that's really the genesis of this idea of from light we come and light we return. And it's not just human beings. It's already been found in science in plants and animals. It's already been determined that that's a reality.
That is a fact. I totally agree with that.
Yep.
So you're saying the zinc spark at conception is the physical manifestation of what spiritual traditions have been pointing to for millennia.
Yep.
That we literally begin with light.
Yeah. And they're scientists, right? So as scientists, they're not going to say, "Hey, we found God." Of course, they're not going to say that, right? So they call it a zinc spark. I call it God.
So the zinc spark at conception is the measurable biochemical event.
Yep.
Where does science and spiritual interpretation begin, in your view?
I think I quote Einstein frequently where he says, the more I study science, the more I believe in God.
Yeah.
And I think as science is expanding into the universe and understanding the magnitude of what the universe is, and truly appreciating what we don't know. And unfortunately, there has been this combativeness between science and spirituality, or science and religion, that somehow science has to prove things wrong. Well, I think we're coming to a place where maybe there can be collaboration. And this is one of them. Dr. John Hagelin, who is a world-renowned physicist, who's worked at the Brookhaven National Lab here in America, as well as the CERN in France. This is a legitimate, world-leading scientist and physicist. And his testimony in the movie is extraordinary. So me as a motivational speaker, as a leader, as an author, look, I'm not in the position to prove scientifically that this light, this divine light, as John referred to it, this divine light is God, or is now scientifically proving God. I'm not in that position. But my interviews with John, man, he calls it a divine light. He calls it the source of all the creation. He calls it about everything you can. And as a matter of fact, at one point in time, he says, let's not call it God, but. So he's the expert. He is, as far as you're concerned, and people that are scientifically inclined, you'd have to watch the movie and you'd have to listen to Dr. John Hagelin. He's the expert, and he's the one that really walks a very fine line on this, because I think that's where we are. We're on a very fine line with now seeing that there is actually this spark of light at the moment of conception. What is it?
Yeah, I'm totally aligned with that, because even in my work, I integrate quantum physics with spirituality, neuroscience as well as psychology. They're all an intersection. They are all leading to one thing. And that is actually whatever you have said right now. It is an important distinction. The spark is observable, measurable, but calling it divine is an interpretive layer.
Yeah.
You're not claiming the science proves God. You're saying the science reveals something that spiritual frameworks helps us interpret.
If people are open to it, great. If people are open to not, and one of the things I point out is that if you look at the population of the world and all the religions and you add them all together, and you add all the different people that have a spiritual belief, that believe that there is a God or a higher power, whether it's a human need, or whether, because there's a lot of people that say it's garbage and that they don't believe in it, but there are far fewer of those people than there are people that actually believe that there's something else. And there's even studies that show that 77% of scientists actually believe that there's something else. And so,
which leads us to this question. What would you say to scientists who argue that the zinc spark is purely biological and not metaphysical?
Great. Listen, if you think about the existence of a human being, from that moment, from that spark till their death. Look, biologically, we know that the body breaks down and that blood cells and skin cells, and they deteriorate and they replace themselves and they replace themselves. So that is clearly a scientific biological process that could be quite easily calculated as a scientific chemical breakdown over whether it be 90 years, 100 years, however long you live. So I'm not arguing and saying absolutely not, that that's ridiculous, because scientifically that argument could be made. And God bless them. I think there's more to it than that, because in the past 2 months, we've now had Chinese scientists, MIT scientists, and Harvard scientists that are doing research on the embryo at the moment of conception and saying that it's mathematically perfect, that there's something mathematically at that moment that is far beyond what we realize.
Yeah.
So people are digging in, and they're starting
Yeah.
to take a closer look. For me, as a spiritual leader, as a motivational, inspirational leader, I believe it's God.
Yeah.
I believe
Yeah.
that moment, because I can't think of another time
Yeah.
in the creation of a human being or a plant or animal. When else would, quote unquote, the light of God enter our body? When would it happen?
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for it. This seems logical.
You're basically not asking anybody to abandon their framework. You're
Absolutely.
inviting them. You're inviting them to consider that mechanism and meaning
Yeah,
aren't mutually exclusive. The
exactly.
how doesn't negate the why.
Yep. Very
How
good.
do you?
Exactly right. Exactly.
Yeah. And in my opinion, everything goes back to the golden ratio, and everything is based on the golden ratio. How do you define God in your framework? Is it consciousness, energy, intelligence, or something else?
You are so great. So listen, the fact that you just bring up consciousness, right? So,
Yeah.
and this was unplanned. So in the movie, I have this wonderful woman, the Reverend Dr. Bonnie Hoffer, and she's a theologian, but she's also a neuroscientist
Hmm.
and a psychologist. So my conversations with her, and it's hard because I wanted to set the stage first. And
Hmm.
as you might imagine, trying to create a movie, you're putting pieces together to try and make sure it flows. And with Bonnie, what we did is we talked about religion and spirituality first. And we talked about the commonalities of all the different religions.
Hmm.
But she talks about consciousness. Then we have Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, we have Dalai Lama, we have Dr. Hagelin, and we have Dr. Raymond Moody. They all refer to consciousness, as you just mentioned. And that was
Yeah.
unintended. I never asked them a question about consciousness. They all went to this place about consciousness.
Yeah.
So I think you're exactly right. Science is opening a door to potentially say, look, there may be something more here. And that's okay for us to continue to ask questions, because that's what science does, right? You continue to ask questions. But at this point, and I'm being a little provocative, right?
Yeah.
In the poster, it says the search for God will end.
Hmm.
And look, I was really hesitant about that. I wasn't sure what to use. But the idea that this spark at the moment of conception is God, and that when we
Yeah.
look at the entire universe, when we look at consciousness, when we look at all the things that we're learning about the universe and string theory, maybe it's true.
Hmm. We're basically not asking people to adopt a specific theology because, again, consciousness is the intersection of everything.
Yep.
And what you're pointing is to something generative and unifying that different traditions name differently.
Absolutely.
Kevin, what convinced you that this phenomenon points to something transcendent rather than just cellular chemistry?
You are awesome. Look, I don't, and I'm tearing up a little bit.
Mm.
Look, I've written 8 books, and I've been talking about motivation and inspiration for 25 years. And
Wow.
so I've gone to businesses and have spoken to thousands of salespeople and sales managers, and I talk about motivation and inspiration and trying to work hard and being diligent. This was transcendent. This was an epiphany. And listen, it's changed my career. It's changed, I think, how people see me. I didn't, quote unquote, ask for it. It just, something happened to my son, who I love dearly, right? And so this had an impact on me,
Hmm.
and it made me ask the question. And
Absolutely.
like scientists, I asked the question. And so for me, this answer, this epiphany, this transcendence of inspirational energy, it's transformed who I am, how I think. I truly believe that
Hmm.
every human being carries the light of God within them. And I think if we could all, and you use the word unify,
Yeah.
gosh, if we could all accept each other or embrace each other as brothers and sisters of God, a piece of God,
Mm.
how would it change how we treat each other? And that, for me, that's the evolution, that's the change, that's the
Yeah.
transformation, is could this be powerful enough to actually change how we see each other?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's not basically one thing. It was the convergence of patterns across disciplines. The scientific discovery validated what spiritual traditions and near-death experiences had already suggested.
Yeah.
So, in your view, does science validate spirituality, or does spirituality reinterpret science? In your view?
I think based on how we use science, Gray, how historically science has been portrayed and how it positions itself within mankind as
Mm-hmm.
The proof, the proof of what is real and not real.
Mm-hmm.
And we've given scientists an awful lot of credibility. And if you look throughout history, science has been wrong a lot. Science has failed to prove a lot of things. But I think, to your point, I think we need science to be open enough.
Yeah.
Like, once again, like Einstein saying, the more I study science, the more I believe in God. Tesla referring to the electromagnetic connection of all the things in the universe. There has to be something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are some of the greatest minds in history saying, nah, there's something else. And as long as scientists are willing to say, this could be the truth. Like I was saying, Harvard scientists, Chinese scientists, MIT scientists are saying there's something at the moment of conception. There's something mathematically perfect about that moment.
Yeah.
Listen, they're there. They're starting to look and say, wait a second, there's something here. And so if science proves it, and I think to your point, if we say that religion or spirituality proves it, it's not as credible in the world today. But if science says, I think we found something here, then that's where you have that merge. That's where you have the unification. That's where you have this meeting of the mind saying,
100%.
Unfortunately, you know that religion and spirituality will say, we told you so.
Yeah, for sure. They're all interconnected at the end of the day. And
Absolutely.
That's a careful position. You're not claiming science proves spirituality. You're saying they are complementary lenses that together reveal something neither can fully capture alone. And I totally agree with that.
Right.
Where do you think people misuse or misunderstand quantum physics when discussing consciousness?
You know, quantum physics is a complicated topic, and it's very vast. And unless people spend time trying to understand it, you know, in this process, I've been very careful to avoid metaphysics. And I've tried to avoid this idea of what's real, what's not real, what's tangible, not tangible. I avoided that. And so when we have people like Dr. John Hagelin, when we have people like Dr. Raymond Moody, look, Dr. Raymond Moody, they still think he's a quack. And he's literally interviewed tens of thousands of people. Wow. And he's not making it up. He's just interpreting their experiences. And so when the FDA wants to prove a drug works, they'll only have a couple of hundred or maybe 1,000 cases where they're like, oh, okay, here is the outcome of our research, and that's it. This man has been interviewing people for 30 years, thousands and thousands of people that have similar experiences, and yet science and medicine won't accept it. And so, you know, once again, we have to ask the question of science to say, listen, when something's introduced that you really don't know the answer to, could you please just say, we really don't know the answer. There's the possibility here that there's something more than we understand. And that's quantum physics, that's consciousness, that's universal consciousness.
Yeah.
I think that's that space that you're in, that you're an expert in. And a lot of people find it hard to truly understand the depth and breadth of it.
That is responsible. In my opinion, quantum mechanics gets weaponized to justify almost anything spiritual. And that undermines both the science and the legitimate inquiry into consciousness.
Agreed. In my conversation with Dr. Hoffer, the Reverend Dr. Hoffer, she talks about this idea of dogma, right? And so we can't get too far away from this idea that, you know, for thousands of years of religion, not necessarily spirituality, but religion, the dogma, the books, the rules, the trying to control how people behave, we can't have that proving
Right. For
science
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
because it's really sort of a control mechanism. And unfortunately, what's going on in the world right now,
Yeah.
we have to pray that things
Yeah.
work out okay.
Yeah.
But anything religious based,
Mhm.
a lot of people feel like they have to defend. I have to
Yeah.
defend my religion. I have to defend my belief system.
And that's a mistake,
Yeah, yeah.
in
And
my opinion.
I think well, no, but I think it's fair. I think that's fair when
Mhm.
people start to dig into that dogma, that belief system. Like I have to defend the right of my religion.
Mm.
We have to get people to the point where, and scientists dig in too. They're digging into what they believe. If
Yeah.
we just get people conscious enough,
Yes. It's the awareness. It's the
awareness, right? If we can get them conscious enough and
Mhm.
open
Mhm.
to just listen, and and that's what I'm very clear in the movie. At the end of the movie, I clearly say, I'm not asking you to change your religion. I'm not asking you to change anything because
Yeah.
90% of the planet already believes in God or a higher power.
Yeah.
I'm just asking people to take a step closer to God, to
Yeah.
embrace it, to understand that God lives within you,
For sure.
and that light and energy that gives you animation, that gives you feelings, that gives you heightened feelings, that opens the door to potential enlightenment. There's the possibility that that light of God lives within all of us. And people have been talking about it since Adam and Eve, since the very beginning of time, since the beginning of mankind.
Yeah.
Is it true? I for one believe it to be true.
I would invite the viewers to listen to one of my episodes that I interviewed a researcher and a scientist that has interviewed more than 300 near-death experiences, and they had all one thing in common: the light. That is in one on my in my episode
Right.
in my podcast.
Right.
So now, Kevin, your son's near-death experience was pivotal for you. What fundamentally shifted in your worldview after that?
Ray, I wish I could tell you. Um,
Mm,
when
yeah.
and there's so many people that are watching that have lost loved ones, right? And
Yes.
people have tragedy. People have tragedy all the time,
Hmm.
and it's so sad. And so obviously my son survived, which was wonderful.
Mm,
And so when you almost lose somebody, it kind of changes things a bit. It changes how you think, how you feel. And so the fact that he had this experience, and he loved his grandfather so much, and
mm,
so the fact that he connected with his grandfather for a moment or two, and that energy, that light, it just it sparked something in me that
mm,
made me just ask the additional questions. And like I said, I had already been in this space of motivation, inspiration, and writing books,
mm.
for 25 years. So this was just a little bit of a, let's just call it a little bit of a shift, right?
I think probably it shifted from you, who is God, to what is God, probably more. So you try to dig into that more deeper.
At the very beginning of the movie, I say
Mhm.
that for years, as once again, as an Irish Catholic that went to church,
Mm,
the question is, who is God? Who is God? Who is God? Who's God? Like, so this idea of God, right? And what is
mm,
God? And that was that transformation for me. Is it's
mm.
not who is God, but what is God? And
Yeah.
then what does
Yeah.
it mean to me? And
Right.
so that transformation, and a simple question. Once again, scientists do it all the time.
Hmm.
Just the simple question changed my
Shifted
perspective.
a lot of stuff. Yeah. Changed a lot of stuff. So, in your opinion and in your point of view, what do near-death experiences suggest about consciousness, and what remains unknowable to
Right?
you?
I mean, listen, that's an eternal question, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's a brilliant question, but it's so deep because we still haven't quite gotten there. And
Yeah.
I think these scientists that are now doing research, right? So Northwestern University doing the research to say, hey, there's a spark of energy or something going on at the moment of conception. Let's dig a little deeper. And now you
Yeah.
have Harvard scientists and MIT scientists saying, hey, wait a second, there's something going on in that embryo. It seems mathematically perfect. Like, what's going on? So I think, to your
Mhm.
point, as they start digging now,
Yeah.
they may start uncovering like just more and more things and more questions. Like, wow, we didn't see this before. We didn't know this existed. Like, look, how long have they been doing colliders of atoms and molecules at the
Oh
CERN
yeah.
or at Brookhaven?
Oh yeah.
And so they've
Oh
been
yeah.
doing it
Tell
for
me.
years. And
Ooh.
they talk about the explosion of energy. when you
Yeah.
collapse those two, that in itself must say something, right? Like the atomic bomb. The amount of power and energy and the dramatic light that occurs, there might be something to it.
There's bigger than what we even think of with CERN and Hydrogen Collider.
Absolutely.
But again, let's go back to the NDEs, and I feel like NDEs point to something
Absolutely.
specific.
To your point, yes. And you'd ask me, and yes, I think it clearly says that when we're talking about consciousness and the human mind or the human aura, I think you're exactly right that there is this next piece, and people are getting closer and closer to it. And people, I think, are asking more questions, and I'm sure you're getting more and more fans. You're getting more and more people that are probably interested in what you have to say and your guests about, well, what is this space and how do I understand it? Because it's complicated. And so here's the difference. And I think, once again, you're asking these brilliant questions. I think the question becomes, so in religion, they spoon feed you what they want you to know. Here's a book, read the book. Here are the rules. Don't break the rules. Here it is. It's simple. It's in the book. It's in the Bible.
Follow a structure.
Very structured. When we start to get into this consciousness and this universal consciousness and this awareness, it's a new space, Gray. It's vast. And there is no clear-cut answer.
Absolutely.
So I think that's when we start to talk about the space of consciousness, we still don't know the answer. We're starting to get a glimpse, I think. And I think Tesla had a glimpse at it, or Da Vinci had a glimpse at it. I think there's people in history that have posed questions that have said, there's something there. I don't know what it is, but I think there's something.
This is what I was saying. NDEs point to something, but they don't give us a complete map.
No.
You're working basically with glimpses and not certainties.
And you have to have belief. You have to believe that these people aren't all lying. And that's why someone like a Dr. Raymond Moody, who's literally interviewed tens of thousands of people, it's like, come on, tens of thousands of people are all telling the same story and they're all lying?
Right. There's something there.
Yeah.
And Kevin, you reworked Maslow's hierarchy of needs into a multidimensional model. What did Maslow miss about human development?
I think so. My first book was called Who Are You? Become the Very Best You That You Can Be. And so for about 20 years, I was a corporate trainer. I went to companies and did training on and development of their staff. So their management teams, their leadership teams, their sales teams. And Maslow's hierarchy would come up frequently in development, how to motivate people. And so, Maslow has this simple, pyramid triangle. But when you look at the triangle over and over again, it becomes, well, what a sec. Why are people referring to that as a pyramid? Because it's not a pyramid, it's a triangle. And so far be it from me to make any criticism or addition to Dr. Maslow. I mean, just a genius, right? So, but I had a dear friend from the Harvard School of Psychology that looked at the book for me and said, Kevin, I'd expand this because I think it's a legitimate question mark about Maslow, and your introduction of this multidimensional hierarchy of needs is legitimate. And so I thought, okay, so I'll just keep going with this. So for me, and maybe it's technology, maybe it's just nuance, maybe it's just a subtle change. So we're still talking about the same 5 layers of human development and meeting needs, right? In order to get to that self-actualization, right? That the top piece. But being able to measure different aspects of your life. So with Dr. Maslow's view, there's one perspective. And so how do you fit, and my question, my hypothesis was, how does a one-dimensional model represent the complexity of the multidimensional human experience? And I felt it couldn't. So that's what led to creating the 21st century multidimensional hierarchy of needs. And I think each of the steps are fundamentally sound. Clay Aldifer at Yale introduced the idea of progression regression so that you could advance certain levels of need, but then you could fall back. And that makes perfect sense, right? And my example in the book, what I do is I take a young athlete, like an 18-year-old athlete, that is a perfect physical specimen, like just a beautiful physical specimen. So you can't say that they're not potentially self-actualized in their physical aspect because they
Yeah.
look beautiful, right? They've developed all their muscles, they're physically fit, but they're, an emotional wreck, financially broke, spiritually corrupt. And so there's tons of other opportunity for growth, but you can't say they weren't self-actualized in that one element of their life. And that's where the multidimensional hierarchy of needs help us break down various elements of our existence, of who we are.
So Maslow's linear model couldn't account for the complexity of lived experiences,
Yep.
how people can be simultaneously operating at multiple levels, or how trauma disrupts the near upward progression.
Absolutely. Sure.
Kevin, how does your multidimensional model account for trauma, shadow, or identity fragmentation?
Yeah, that's a little bit more complex, Gray.
Yeah.
And that goes deeper into psychology. And I'm not a psychologist. I've studied it for years, but I wouldn't venture into that too far. As we know,
Yeah, we can keep it
and
simple.
through my own personal experiences,
Yeah.
trauma can prevent development. And so if we're talking about the human experience and motivation and what motivates us, I think what it does is, to Clay Alderfer's progression regression model, it makes us resort or come back to fundamental needs of physiological needs. The very fundamental needs that we need is just, water, breathing, food, shelter. It really brings us back to an isolation. One of the references I use is, so I created National Motivation and Inspiration Day as January 2nd of every year after the events of 9/11, 2001, the terrorist attacks.
Okay.
Because I saw the way people came together. And yes, I understood the tragedy, but I saw how people came together and unified in this common belief of trying to help each other, right? After 9/11, if you think about it, our safety was questioned. Our safety was threatened.
Yes.
So that second level of Maslow's hierarchy is safety, security. So outside of our own physiological needs, we have a need for safety and security. Well, after 9/11, the world became a fairly unsafe place. And now we can't just go to the airport and just go walk on the plane like we used to. We now all have to go through security checkpoints. So that one event in history really changed the landscape of the world to make it a fairly unsafe place, because now it's a multi-trillion-dollar business of security and safety.
Sure.
Right?
Safety is crucial at this point. And any model that only accounts for upward movement misses the reality that growth often requires descent, integration of shadow, confrontation with what we have avoided.
Yeah, very good. Yes.
You have endured significant personal hardship, Kevin. The divorce, the betrayal, the suicidal despair. How did suffering refine your understanding of life?
I think, to some degree, that's why it had such an impact on me too, I think. Because it came at a time after I had been betrayed by people that I loved the most, which, listen, once again, there's people that have been cheated on, all over the world. It happens all the time to men and to women, right? And so, look, I'm not an unusual case, but I am a bit of a, I'm sensitive to those sorts of things. And it was truly devastating for me. And that's what led me, unfortunately, to be suicidal, because I was so hurt and so betrayed. And I guess in that vulnerable space is where this belief of this light that gives me life, because I wanted to extinguish it. Sure. This light that lives within me is God.
Yeah.
And so if I truly can have faith every day that I'm here and that God's delays are not God's denials, and that I'm here trying to do God's work and doing really positive things in the world, if I can continue to do what I do, which I've been doing for almost 30 years now, then the payoff may not be financial. It may not be the perfect relationship. It may not be, but I'm here for a purpose. And I think that may be the greatest impact that the light of man has had on me, is that through all the tragedy and despair and difficulty that I've gone through, this gift of this movie was given to me. And I truly believe it's divine, because someone like a Dr. John Hagelin, someone like a Dr. Moody, someone like a Dr. Hoffer, for me to be able to reach out to the Dalai Lama and get permission to use content from the Dalai Lama, I mean, Gray, just everything fell into place, and it was unbelievable. You know, Dominic Costello, the director and producer of the movie, it just turned out that during COVID, he wasn't traveling the world doing other projects and just happened to be available with his team, and did me a favor. He probably did it for half the amount he should have done, because he believed in the project. So, I mean, everything fell into place for a reason, and I believe it was divinely driven.
For sure. Your experiences has stirred you towards alignment, towards your life purpose. And that's what the viewers and everybody really needs to know and understand about that. Once you are in alignment, following your divine purpose, you're not going to be worrying about anything else, whether if it's financially, whether if it's anything else, because you are following that is the passion, that is a divine purpose, and you are in alignment. And the light isn't about transcending darkness. It is about what remains present through darkness. Suffering didn't disapprove the light. It revealed what the light actually is. And Kevin, how do you prevent spiritual ideas from becoming bypass mechanisms rather than tools for real growth?
You know, they can be used both ways, can't they, Greg? You know, the original idea, the intent of spiritual beliefs and religious beliefs would create a foundation of a secure society of people that believe similar things, that would embrace each other and support each other in the same faith or belief. What's happened, and if you think of the secularism or the disparate nature of religion and spiritual movements around the world, people were safe within their own region or within their own nation, because they were with people that had similar beliefs, similar behaviors, similar culture, similar. And as we are now globally mixing all of those, it's creating friction. And so people have a choice of either embracing and embracing the change and saying change is good, and we can embrace other people as long as they don't use doctrine to control us, and they don't say that their beliefs are better than our beliefs. That's not acceptable. But if we have people that are willing to be open and say, look, I don't care if you're black, blue, orange, red, that doesn't matter. If you're a good person, and I accept that the light of God lives within you and within me, which, as you know, I redefined the idea of what namaste means in the movie. So I think, to your point, it can go both ways, Greg. We know, we've seen it, that these rituals and these behaviors entrench people, which is kind of what's causing some of the issues that are going on right now in the world. And to ask people to disregard or to move away from their rigid dogma beliefs, I think it's happening, but it's happening slowly. And as you know, change doesn't happen like that. Well, sometimes it does, but change for human beings seems to take time in order to happen.
Because
and let me just touch on the one thing, and just so we're on this. So, so I'm occasionally, I do yoga occasionally, and I also work with some Indian folks. I worked in Indian University for several years, Amity University. And so the idea of namaste became something that I used. And so I thought it was great. And so, in yoga, the instructor will say, namaste, the light within me acknowledges the light within you, which creating the light of man kind of made sense to me, right? It's like, oh, I like that. But if you do more research online, there's certain Christian movements and certain Christian quotes that say you shouldn't say namaste because people are declaring that they are God. And that's not true. That's not what they were saying. But what I did is I took it a step further and said, wait a second. If they're saying that part of the original reason, or part of the original explanation for namaste was divinity, and that people were saying the divine in me, and yogis are saying the light in me, well, wait a second. Maybe the original intent was the divine light of God within me acknowledges the divine light of God within you. And so that's what I reinforce in the movie. This idea that, wait a second, I think there was a deeper meaning to the idea of namaste, which once again precedes Jesus Christ, is all the way back to 5,000 years, 7,000 years. And so when they said namaste with their hands in pray mode and gesturing towards another person, I think truly what they were saying is the divine light in me, the divine light of God in me acknowledges the divine light of God within
That's
you.
beautiful, actually. That is
Right.
beautiful.
And so simple and so beautiful and so powerful.
Yeah,
and
because it is a mudra.
Absolutely.
The hand salutation.
Yep.
I personally do Tai Chi. I love Tai Chi because it's also a form of meditation and also energetic power.
Yeah.
But again, here, Kevin, about when I ask about the preventing spiritual ideas from becoming bypass mechanisms, in my opinion, that is the test actually. Does the spiritual framework help you face reality more honestly, or does it give you permission to avoid it? If it makes you less grounded, less responsible, less relational, that is bypass. Period.
Yeah.
You have to do integration here. You have to be grounded in it. And what is the difference between feeling inspired and being transformed based on your experience?
I think you know it. And so one of the things, and it's funny that when creating National Motivation Inspiration Day and Motivation Inspiration Month, which is January, I define clearly the difference between motivation and inspiration. Inspiration is that light, that fire, that energy that you feel inside. When someone's really excited about something, really, really inspired, really energized, it hits you and then that motivation, the motivation of doing what you need to do in order to achieve the goal or achieve the dream or do the thing that you're trying to do, the motivation, it almost comes naturally. You don't even really have to try that hard. And to your point before, when you find your alignment, when you're aligned with what seems like your mission in life, right? I forget the name of it.
Your divine purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Your divine purpose.
Yeah.
When you're aligned, it almost seems effortless. And so to your point, the difference between being inspired and really transformed is when something is so powerful, it redefines maybe how you think, how you feel, how you feel about your life, yourself, how you feel about other people. That's that transformation.
For sure. Inspiration, as you say, this is an emotional state. Transformation is a structural shift in how you perceive, you relate, and you choose. One fades, the other persists.
Yeah. And I think you're right, because there are people that say they're inspired about something, but then they don't really do anything about it. So people have said like, oh, I was so inspired. Yeah, but what'd you do about it?
But where's the action? Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
So when people are truly inspired about something, I think you're right. Then you take action and then you transform your life and transform other people's lives.
Correct. If a humans carry a divine spark, Kevin, which is the divine light, what responsibility does that place on us individually and collectively?
You are such a gift. That's the light of man. Great. That's the whole question. Yeah. The whole question is that I'm trying to get this to be spread around the world for people to watch it, to feel something, to say, I have a responsibility, an obligation to be a better person. I can be a better person. I shouldn't treat people the way I treat them. Listen, I'm in this business of motivational speaking, motivational leadership speaking. And I watch consistently these men that are speaking in front of audiences and they use vulgarity all the time. And I constantly write to them and say, why are you using vulgarity? That's exactly proving how weak we are. We should be using inspirational language. We should be using positive language. We shouldn't be using vulgarity just so we can capture attention. That's weak. And I used to tell my son, when I would curse, it's me at my weakest. If we're intelligent people, we should be able to articulate ourselves without using base, disgusting language. And our world is becoming a little bit vulgar. And, I wrote the book Transcendence, Overcoming Vulgarity and hate in order to create world peace. To your point, I think it's this idea that if we can get people to embrace this consciousness, this responsibility, that we are something more than this flesh and body that we're living in. And to Pierre Jardin's point is that we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. Rather, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And the more people that can embrace that idea that we are spiritual beings, we are divine beings. Gray, who knows? I don't know how positive that could be, what kind of a positive change that could make in the world.
100%. And that's very profound. If we're going to categorize only as a black and white, the feeling or the emotion of love, we're going to put it under the category of the light, and the hate and the fears, we're going to put it under the category of the black, right? So love essentially is as well light, because the divine is both. And if we are carrying this light, then how we treat ourselves and each other isn't just a moral issue. It is a sacred one. The light demands that we live differently.
Great. And that's what your journey is. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get people to embrace that.
Yes. And that's the name of my podcast, The Light and the Shadow. You have to embrace both, love both, and spread that light more, right? And because without the light, we don't have the shadow. And without the shadow, we don't have the light.
Exactly.
Kevin, you have expressed concern about AI potentially diminishing human creativity and imagination. If we carry divine light, what does that mean for how we relate to technologies that can mimic but not originate?
I think once again, because of my years spent training salespeople, sales managers, people that had to motivate and inspire and energize people to create, to produce. As a former semi-professional athlete, my brothers were professional athletes. I've seen what it is to be motivated and to work with a group of people that you take these individuals and make them into a team. You have them collaborate and work together. And I think, there's a quote from Einstein about the difference between creativity and intelligence. Imagination. He said that imagination is more important than intelligence because education is limited and imagination can run free around the world. Yeah. And I think that idea of imagination, when we talk about AI, listen, when I get together with a group of people, the interaction with human beings and actually being near each other, the energy that we extend to each other, we feel it, we know it. And to our point, look, we're digitally connected right now. We can't really feel each other. We're talking the same vibe. I think we like what we're saying and we like each other because we're saying really similar things. And that's great. But if we were near each other, I think the energy that we would be feeling would be much more intense because we'd be really, really engaged. And I think for this next generation that we're introducing AI and robots, and it is truly artificial and it's not the human experience. And we are so powerful and our brains are so powerful and our creativity is so powerful.
Exactly.
AI is artificial. It's taking away, it's stripping some of the creativity of our young people that maybe take the easy way out, that are maybe lazy about it. And instead of spending time being creative, they're just having AI do it. And so listen, AI can create a Picasso in 10 minutes. But you know what? It took Picasso a long time to create that.
Yeah.
It took the Beatles years to
There's a meaning behind
music.
There's always a meaning behind it when it's done by a human.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you can see that when you have someone explain a painting, or when you have a Michelangelo that explains the reason for a sculpture or the depth of a sculpture. It took time and there is meaning there. Whereas with AI, there's no meaning.
Because you're putting as an artist, you put your thoughts, you put your feelings into a piece. This painting right there, this is a sculpted and structured painting done by me. I do it and I infuse it with Reiki as well as a tool to my, complementary for my work. Without thoughts, without feelings, without meaning, doesn't make any sense. This painting doesn't make any sense. So the question is whether we will remember what makes us distinctly human, the capacity to create from nothing, to imagine what does not exist, to bring light into form. That is not something AI can do, no matter how sophisticated it becomes.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And that's why I'm fearful, right? That's why I'm fearful about where this goes and what it does and what it steals. I do a program about emotional intelligence. And one of the things that, parents do with young athletes, here in the States is, they're constantly trying to fix things for them. And they're constantly trying to control development. They're constantly trying to control groups of kids, and they're trying to control their behavior. What they're doing is they're stealing the emotional intelligence of their children, because their children are no longer trying to figure it out themselves. They're no longer trying to figure out each other's emotions, whether they get angry, whether they're upset, whether they upset someone else, whether you're going to get in a fight, whatever that might be. Our parents are controlling all these behaviors, so they're stealing the emotional intelligence of our children. Right. And an entire generation of kids that don't have any emotional intelligence is probably not a good thing. And you throw AI in on top of that.
Yeah.
Now you have a lot of meaningless stuff that really just doesn't mean anything. So people will have less care, and they just won't care about stuff.
I think this is a blessing in disguise, because at the end of the day, this is where our role comes into place. This is where they're going to need us a lot.
You hope, right? You hope.
Well, my last question for you, Kevin. After all this exploration, the documentary, the research, the personal journey, what do you still not know, and what remains mystery?
Man, I love you. You are awesome. Look, there's a great saying that the more we learn, the less we know.
Yeah.
And I think that has become profound for me. I
agree.
All the books, all the studying, all the speaking, all the things that I've done, I truly realize that I know far less than I thought I knew. And it's humbling. And you know what? I think that's a good thing. Because as a young man, I think I might have been a little arrogant, and I might have thought that I knew more than I knew. Yeah. And now as an older man, I realize that there's so much that I don't know. And I'm so respectful of, there's just so many people that I've met that are just incredible experts and incredible people, like Dr. Hagelin, like Dr. Moody, like Dr. Hofer, just spectacularly brilliant people.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing my part, and the light of man is truly the most important thing outside my son, truly the most important thing that I've ever created in my life. And I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what to do with it, frankly, Gray. And I thank you for the opportunity to talk about it, because this is what I want. I want the world to understand, much like your message that you're sharing, is that this light and energy that lives within us, this light in the world, is a positive, great thing. And we need to embrace it more and share it more with each other in order to make our lives more positive.
Totally. That humility matters. Even after discovering the spark, after making the connections, you're still standing in front of something that exceeds explanation. The light reveals and conceals at the same time, and all you have to do is go with the flow. Kevin, thank you.
Guidance, right?
Yes. Kevin, thank you for joining us today.
Great. I am so thankful. God bless and namaste. Thank you so very much for this opportunity to meet you and chat with you.
This has been a conversation that bridges worlds, science and spirituality, knowledge and mystery, light and shadow. To everyone listening, I want to leave you with something Kevin said. That if we carry a divine spark, it places a responsibility on us. Not just to believe something, but to live as if it's true. To treat ourselves and each other as carriers of something sacred. To remember that the light isn't just at conception or at death. It is here, now, and how we choose to show up. You can find Kevin's documentary and the movie The Light of Man and his old books, including his work on the multidimensional hierarchy of needs, at kevinmccrudden.com. It's going to be in the description box below. The documentary features conversations with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Dr. Raymond Moody, Dr. John Hagelin, and other luminaries exploring the intersection of consciousness, physics, and spirituality. If this conversation brought something up for you, if you are recognizing that you carry something you haven't fully honored, or if you are navigating the gap between spiritual insight and embodied transformation, I work with people at exactly that threshold. I'm a quantum-informed spiritual mentor and seer. I help people transform at the pattern level, where insight alone stops working. You can learn more about Gray Theories Academy and private coaching at the description box below. If this conversation simply left you with questions, stay with them. Let them work on you. Not everything needs to be resolved today. This is a Light and Shadow podcast. Thank you for listening with an open mind and a discerning heart. Until next time.